सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। समस्तजनकल्याणी निरतं करुणामयं नमामि चिन्मयं देवं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरम्। ॐ श्री चिन्मय सद्गुरवे नमः। योगेन चित्तस्य पदेन वाचां मलं शरीरस्य च वैद्यकेन योपाकरोत्तं प्रवरं मुनीनां पातञ्जलि प्राञ्जलिना नतोऽस्मि। हरि ओम। We are in the process of understanding the progression towards the final and the ultimate destination of a yogi, which is Nirbija Samadhi, or the Samadhi in which there is darshanam of Purusha, which is equivalent to the Atma Darshanam that we have in Advaita Vedanta. The process of moving from the point of outward closing of the world to the final destination of Purusha Darshanam travels through certain stages. They are not very compartmentalized yet. They can be studied as if they are stages. They're very dynamic, they're very fluid in nature. What is traveling is the consciousness upwards. In order to understand the yogic travel of the mind or the consciousness inside, we tried to study the Sankhya Srushti Utpatti Prakriya. Simpler words, manifestation from the absolute consciousness to the lowermost manifestation of Pancha Mahabhautik Vishwa, which includes us, our body, or all the bodies that are there around us. Chara, Achara, Chetana, Sachetana, Achetana, Jada. So we start from the grossest possible body, which we try to convert them into some object of meditation. We call them by different names. And the secret or the esoteric idea behind creating these idols, it's something worth noting. Hinduism has been subjected to criticism by many other religions as a religion with umpteen numbers of Buth, as they call in Islam. Buth means the idol. And they thought that's a wrong thing, it should be crushed or destroyed or whatever. But you feel pity about the understanding of the concept of idol or the murti. Different fact that even the Hindus do not understand the importance of it. If you look at any murti, it is not normally a murti resembling a human. Go to any temple, think of any god. You will find it is, in better English word for the murti would be grotesque, not something normal, abnormally looking. You may have an elephant's head, you may have, if not anything, at least four hands. Nothing in the idol is similar to human being as a copy. If there is a Kali Mata, then she's black in color with an absolute red tongue pouting out, with four hands, having absolutely ferocious look. If it is Shiva, then matted hairs, and there is a moon on the head, and there is a Ganga that is flowing, and there is a Sarpam, that is the cobra that is hissing at the world. If you look from the yoga standpoint, the reason why such idols are made in this manner is our first object of the inward journey of mind is by concentrating on the visible manifestation of Pancha Mahabhutas. And for the help of that, we take a murti in front of us for the concentration. That is the beginning of our journey or the exercise. So when we are into what is called as Savitarka Sampradnyat Samadhi stage, the first stage of upward movement, we have the object in front of us upon which we focus, and this object, which incidentally is one of the murti, is not like a human being, because here lies the reason for it. Had it been a human form immediately distracts a mind towards the human qualities. Let us take an example. If for a man there is a lady walking on the street, what happens when you look at the lady? If your mind is not sattvika, it immediately starts flying into imaginations, being it's a rajasic nature, and then it starts correlating that with the previous experiences, and the kama udbhava happens in the mind. The sexual feelings are aroused. Why this happened is because there is another human being of the previous experience type, and this matching elicits a response inside the mind to think of some previous experiences which are very, very material experiences. Now that we are into the journey of mind moving from the lower end to the upper end, while concentrating, because concentration is a powerful exercise of putting the mind into the object. And in case the object elicits carnal desires, that is why there has to be a puja bhava or worshipable attitude towards the object. That's why the eulogizing of the gods in the forms of Chaturbhuja Gajanana or something already elevates the mind. And yet, even if she is a murti of a Devi, no carnal things come in your mind, simply because the object appears to be power or Shakti personified. A shaligramam does not appeal to us as a stone because of the thinking vested into it. No previous experience of any bad kind or tamasic or rajasic type is associated with a murti. We have never thought in your mind about Bhagavan Ram, Sri Krishna, Shiva, Ganesha as a bad thing in our mind. So all good has been associated with that object. That is why while concentrating on that object, only the good things emanate in mind, which helps in the progression of the concentration of the consciousness of the mind into the consciousness of the idol or the object. That is why the first stage of concentration starts with what is called as Savitarka Sampradnyat Samadhi, in which the consciousness of the dhyata, the meditator, focuses on any Panchamahabhautic thing And instead of any, it is better to have a murti in front of us. And since the choice for such murti can depend upon the swabhavam or the swadharmam of the dhyata based on his cultural upbringing, spiritual upbringing, social upbringing, etc., he has been given a choice of having umpteen number of idols. That is the reason why Hinduism, for the spiritual democratic selection of the object of worship, offers to the dhyata, meditator, umpteen number of choices unlike any other religion. So that is something to be proud of, not something to be criticized upon as done by the complete failure of understanding on the part of other religions which even today exists. Hinduism in the art of meditation has been in advanced state right from beginning. By the time the other religions came on the scene, Hinduism had progressed and galloped to the ultimate heights long back. Well before any of these today's established religions came into the existence, Patanjali Maharaj had already written and completed the book, the scripture, about the highest elevation of human mind, that is merging of individual consciousness into the absolute consciousness, upward movement of the consciousness of mind, and having darshanam of the Purusha. In this kaleidoscopic travel, we are moving from the world of experiences to the world where there is no experience. So the journey is basically, dhyanam is a process by which the dhyata, the meditator, with the help of dheya and dhyanam, the desired object and the process of merging with the object, moves from the point of experience which is tripartite in nature, dhyata, dheya, dhyanam, jnata, jneya, jnanam. This is the lowermost level of experienced state, slowly moving upwards and then reaching a stage where dhyata, dhyanam, and dheya becomes one. So from tripartite existence and tripartite involvement of experience to the unitary solidified, not an experience, but the knowledge of that state which cannot be described, which in other words is designated by the word Purusha, is the process of dhanam, is the process of Yoga Shastra. The first thing that is done in this process is, there is a point where this journey starts. From this point, the journey is upwards, and from this point, we are presently into the journey which is downwards. The downward journey is entering into the world of experience through the Indriyas. So the imperative part in the Yoga Shastra, as described by Patanjali Maharaj, is the first step is to withdraw from the involvement in the world. Unless we withdraw from the involvement and come to the point where the journey upward starts, there is no jumping possible. And this withdrawing from world is called Vairagyam, which is done with the help of the intellect called Viveka. Mind well, Vairagyam, that is leaving the world of external objects so that the internal journey can start, is possible only when the mind is disengaged from the external world. Journey of the mind, to give an analogy, if you want to study the car has to steady itself and completely switch off. You cannot study a car when it is moving on the road. You cannot contemplate upon the mind when the mind is already functioning outside in the world. Cessation or stopping of mind working in the world is Vairagyam. We saw the stages of apara and para vairagya. Para vairagya, let us leave it little aside because that is the highest of the vairagya that is possible only when the Purusha Darshanam, completion of internal journey happens. Apara vairagya is what we need to really study, and that is removing ourselves from the involvement in this world. And in all totality, we have to do it. The objects of which we are very fond of, all the material things like car, TV, telephone, mobile, whatever. Also, the subjects with which we have developed special relations and kept in our mind these relations as very sacred. A friend, a wife, a son, a daughter, uncle, these are all relationships that we have developed ourselves by presuming certain things in this world without realizing that this is the relation that plunges us back into the external world. As long as we do that, there is no chance, no question of we moving inside. So first is sadhan chatushtam, which itself means abstaining from external world. The exercise which we contemplate for Vairagyam and Vivekam is constant alertness of the mind whenever we are interacting with the external world, so that the Vairagyam is a flame that is continuously kept alive when we interact in this world. Right from the morning when we open our eyes, we should be very clear that this is the world that has plunged me into the state of what is called as material experience. And the material experience is of external world is a complete no-no for a yogi. If by chance, because of the previous adrushta, that is papam punyam, one is able to really leave the external world, initially by stopping the indriyas, then by quenching the thirst of indriyas by making them understand, that is Dhamma and Shama both. And then if one is able to then tame the mind itself so that the mind does not remember the world or the objects and the subjects, then and then you are ready for the internal journey, the first stage of which is Savitarka Samprajnata Samadhi, in which such a purified mind, which is not at all now inclined to get into the external world, is ready to plunge into the object of meditation, which is a murti or the idol that we have kept in front of us. With the closure of eyes, with the silent breathing that is going on, with the connections with the external world completely shut off. No other external influence is now working on the mind. The mind realizes that it is no more engaged into the external world. It starts marching towards the object of meditation. And that is the point when the meditator's meditation had started with the first bang of concentration, ekagrata. It is no more kshipta, vikshipta or moodha. It is now in ekagrata attempt. When we do this ekagrata on the object of meditation, the mind keeps falling off from the process and tries to run back to the external world, which presently is closed by my eyes, but the mind has an ability to ideate and extrapolate and bring back from the memories whatever has happened yesterday, tomorrow, today, the future, the past, the present, the relations, the objects. The world gets recreated in the mind again without being in the world physically. In such a situation, the consciousness again tries to bring back the world right in the room of meditation, where the meditator is trying to meditate upon the object of meditation. So the object goes away from the antarchakshu or the consciousness, and it gets replaced by something from outside. This is the first struggle that a meditator faces. And the success in this struggle for the meditator depends upon his sattvikata. If the vairagyam is incomplete, if the vairagyam is not ripe, then simple closure of eyes cannot lead to meditation. The meditator has to qualify for the meditation. This does not mean that the meditation should not be tried. But the effort of meditation presupposes the ability of the meditator to completely dissolve the external world before he begins the journey of the internal world. In such a journey, when the meditator has started moving inside with the object, with every inch and every step of concentration, his consciousness starts focusing more and more on the object of meditation, the Vishnu, the Balakrishna, the Shiva, whatever we have in front of us. Initially, the consciousness for a glimpse of movement reaches to the object of meditation, and in 99% case, it falls back to the world in the mind. But one who with the determination sits for a prolonged meditation, with the grace of God and the Sattva Guna that one has, the time for which he gets focused on the object slowly increases, not by leaps and bounds, but by inch and inch. The progress here again depends upon how much meditative practices have been done by this individual in his previous life. Mind well, it is not a procedure of one birth. That is why a person of Swami Vivekananda's caliber could concentrate at the drop of hat right in his childhood. Abhedananda could do it very easily. Gurudeva required less than a year or two to transgress all the stages of meditation and reach the highest goal of supreme consciousness, not only because of the efforts, but also because of the efforts undertaken in the previous birth. So one who tries to meditate for the Savitarka Samadhi has to focus on the medium or the object with enormous amount of patience and perseverance. Mind well, tenacity of the purpose, perseverance, ability with all the peace of mind to pursue what one has undertaken is almost a mandatory thing for the meditator. Frustrations lie in the journey. They are scattered everywhere. The spiritual melancholy comes at all the places. This kind of spiritual melancholy is referred to as vishada. It is not dukkham. Dukkham is when we are chasing an object which we don't get. When we intend to have an experience and we don't get it, we call it dukkham. But when we chase something which is not an experience and yet we don't get it, it is called vishada. So spiritual melancholy or the vishada does happen in the journey of this particular movement of consciousness. If with God's grace and because of the previous punyam of the meditator, if he is able to focus upon this particular object of meditation and pass on his concentration to the object that is under consideration, then the total transference of consciousness of the meditator into the consciousness of the object leads to what is called as Savitarka Sampradnyat Samadhi. As the rule of consciousness is that it being the light, wherever it goes, it enlightens. Here, the object of meditation being a Pancha Mahabhautika object in the form of Vishnu, In the first stage, what happens is the consciousness enlightens Pancha Mahabhutas in the object, and at the point of complete transference of consciousness of the meditator into the object of consciousness, the object and consequently the Panchamahabhutas lay bare open themselves in front of the meditator, and the meditator at one go comes to know the intricate nature of all the Panchamahabhutas. This complete transference of consciousness of the meditator into the object of meditation, or the consciousness of meditator into the consciousness of the object, is called samapatti, a word which will be used by Patanjali Maharaj subsequently in the second and the third adhyaya. Samapatti is complete unison or complete acquisition. Apatti is acquisition. In normal parlance, apatti means difficulty. That is what we normally think in day-to-day language. That is not the word. The Sanskrit word apatti means acquisition. You acquire the consciousness of somebody else with the help of your consciousness, and then merging it becomes one single unified consciousness, completely deleting the difference between the consciousness of observer or the meditator and the consciousness of the object of meditation, thus the object becoming subject and the subject remaining the subject, and two subjects coming together forming one subject. When the consciousness of somebody touches the consciousness of object only on the surface, at that point of time, the consciousness gives only the awareness of that subject. If I hold this handkerchief in my hand and look at it with my eyes, I shall come to know that this is an handkerchief simply because my consciousness has touched upon the surface of the handkerchief. However, the internal intricate details of this particular object are not known to me because my concentration hasn't pierced into it to the extent that it should. So this complete percentile of my consciousness getting into the object of percentile, complete percentility in the object of meditation, is what is called as the first stage, savitarka samprajnat samadhi. As the consciousness starts pouring into the object of consciousness, as the meditator starts moving towards closer and closer into the object of consciousness and plunges fully into it, at that point of time, because this process begins with an idea that I am meditating on the object of consciousness, as consciousness starts moving towards the object and becomes one with the object, the next step that it drops the fact that I am concentrating on the object, and when that I still remains, but the space and the time which I'm aware of when I started the meditation drops off, the same samadhi, samprajnat samadhi, becomes nirvitarka. Savitarka, nirvitarka. With time and space as the dimension, dikkala, or without space and time as the dimension. Moment you transcend the time and the space, what happens is the one who is meditating loses the track of the time. That's why when he comes out of the meditation, he's surprised to know, oh, almost an hour has passed, almost an evening has passed, almost a night has passed, almost few days have passed, almost few years have passed, depending upon how long he has transcended time and space and in which stage he has transcended time and space. In Puranas, we do hear stories that there was a sadhu meditating and the ants had formed their nest around him. These are not exaggerations, because time is relative in this sense. The time is frozen for such people because once oneself is completely merged into the consciousness, nothing remains, nor the time, nor the space. Of course, as we move higher up in the consciousness, the awareness of the body also is going to get dissolved. At a Savitarka Nirvitarka stage, it doesn't dissolve. We are still aware that I am meditating, I have a body, I'm focusing on an object of meditation, I'm slowly focusing and getting into the object of meditation. All this awareness of me and mine still continues in the beginning stage, but as we move towards the upper stages, me and mine consciousness starts becoming less and less, and the object of meditation, that consciousness starts becoming more and more. So what happens is the meditator, the person who is a human being with two hands and two legs, slowly starts forgetting his deha tadatmyata, or the awareness of the body, and starts occupying the body of the object of meditation. And that is why instead of he remaining he becomes the object of meditation. So initially, the object being the Panchamahabhautik, he becomes the representative form of Vishnu, Rama, whatever, and then he can also have darshanam of that particular object. Darshanam meaning his mind is able to visualize in the live form, because that is what he's been meditating upon. Then he moves further, and then he tries to see that the object that I was meditating is not a gross object, but it is an object which is actually made up of multiple amount of vibratory things inside it, which compose and constitute the object. In other words, in Sankhya Tattva Jnana words, this object is nothing else but the tanmatras, or the elementary fundamental aspect of Panchamahabhutas, from which the Panchamahabhutas are formed, which is, in other words, in Shastriya Paribhasha, apanchikruta tanmatras, the original fundamental aspect from which the gross object has been formed. So it is a microscopic aspect or subtle aspect of the same Panchamahabhutas. So now the yogi has moved from the Savitarka, Nirvitarka, Sampradnyat Samadhi to the next one, which is called as the Savichar or Nirvichar. Now at this stage, again, the same process repeats. He focuses there, becomes one of the Sukshma Tanmatras of everything, again transcends the time and space there, and then moves up. When he moves up at the third stage, now the perspectives of manifestations is gone. Tamogunatmak manifestation we saw in Sankhya Tattva Jnana Srishti creation. Tamogunatmak manifestations being the Panchamahabhutas, both Sthula and the Sukshma, both are gone now. Now the mind starts moving towards the Buddhi. Now we all know that as we come towards the Buddhi, it is a Sattva Guna. Now, how is it possible that Buddhi itself is a very abstract thing? How can you focus your mind on an abstract thing? What do you imagine at that point of time? In case of a cross Panchamahabhuta, the object is possible. In case of Tanmatra also, it is difficult, but let's presume that you get. The fact is, every time you transcend one stage, the second stage automatically opens, because the consciousness is now no more Buddhi, but it is Pradnya. That is why the word Sampradnyat. The Pradnya, which is the higher level of consciousness, it moves from one stage to other stage, means the second stage automatically appears in front of you. When does that appear? By focusing sufficiently on the previous stage. So from the stage one, a continued concentration on the object of consciousness further leads to Nirvitarka, and from Nirvitarka to the next stage. While going from one stage to another stage, a stage comes where the person who is concentrating and the consciousness enter into a phase where there is neither object of concentration nor the concentration, that is called as the Laya or Pratyaya Virahit Avastha or Bindu. This Bindu is a Sampradnyatata. There is no object, no meditation, nothing but a void kind of a thing, but it is not a void, it is an active, dynamic thing. But it is that particular patch or the phase moving from first to the second stage or one to the other stage, during which there is no experience of any kind. It is called pratyaya virahita avastha. Pratyaya virahitata means no manifestation of any experience less transitory stage. So with this alternating, now why it has become this kind of, because it is about to emerge into the next stage. So it is like a road which is going in 4 directions, and there is a central pedestal, or the center of roads are going on 4 sides, and at the center is the point where there is no experience. So when you start coming towards the center from one road, you come with experience and reach the center of that particular square where there are no experiences, pratyaya virahita avastha. Again, you start walking onto the second road. Moment you go towards the second road, which is slightly higher than the first one in the terms of stages, again the experiences spring back. But these experiences are not same as the previous stage. So experiences that the yogi gets in the savitarka samadhi or nirvitarka samadhi are definitely different than savichara and nirvichara samadhi. What you get in savichara, nirvichara, sampradnyat samadhi is different than what you get in sananda or sananda samadhi. So in these things, we need to understand certain things, that this moving from vitark to vichar, or vichar to ananda, and ananda to asmita, the experiences at each place have some resemblance to the experience that we get down below at the ground level where we are. And as we move up, these experiences become of a different nature than the experience that we had so far. That is why as we move upwards, it becomes more and more difficult to say anything about these experiences. That is why savitarka samadhi is elaborately described. Savichara samadhi is less elaborately described. Sananda samadhi is further less elaborately described. And asmita samadhi is very faintly described. And after that, the description disappears. The yogi is not able to describe it anymore. That is why even Patanjali Maharaj has given the 18th mantra, which is a mantra which says that Anyaha. Anyaha means other than these 4 stages, when the yogi goes forward towards what is called asampradnyat samadhi, Patanjali Maharaj has not even used the word asampradnyat samadhi. He says sampradnyat is these 4 stages, asampradnyat anyaha. Anyaha means very difficult to describe, sir. It cannot be described because now it has gone and completely derooted itself from tripartite experience of a mortal. This movement of consciousness from this absolute consciousness upwards also presupposes slow dissolution of where you are. So as you start moving up, first the world is dissolved. You're not aware that there is somebody existing here and there. But you are aware that you are existing and your mind is existing, your thoughts are existing. As we move upwards, the thought starts losing the relevance, except one thought that you are focusing on something. So your focus and what is coming out of experience of that focus is only remains. But as you move forward, slowly this identification of you, the experience, and the object of experience, they start becoming fainter and fainter and fainter. As you move towards the 3rd stage, which is, we saw savitarka, savichara. When you come to sananda, sananda means you are focusing on your mind, which is nothing else but what is buddhi. Because now so far first 2 stages are with tamoguna, pancha mahabhuta, sukshma and tanmatra, vitarka and vichara. They are all tamogunatmak. Now you are going to focus on sattva gunatmak buddhi. We saw that buddhi is nothing else but it is formed by sattvangsha of all the jnanendriyas together, samuchaya. So now you are going to focus on your mind, which is buddhi. Since it is sattvic in nature, at this point of time, when we focus on this particular, what is called as buddhi, then buddhi being the part of the sukshma sharira, you identify yourself with the sukshma shariras of the entire world and you start identifying yourself with Hiranyagarbha. Further subtler aspect of the universe or the creation are opened to you. And mind well, when I say creation, I am not referring to the earth. I am referring to what is called as Ananta Koti Brahmand. That means multiverses. Universe is one thing that we know. There are multiverses. This is what the modern science tells us. You start gaining the knowledge of multiverses at the subtler or the microscopic level. Here again, the focusing on this Shuddha Sattvic Buddhi opens up further and moves upwards towards the last bastion, which is Sa-Asmita. This Sa-Asmita is the purest form of Ahankara. Please and kindly do not confuse this Ahankara with the Ahankara that is loosely used word as ego in general parlance. This is a pure Ahankara. Pure means there is no derogatory thing about it. The Ahankara that we refer is a derogatory word because it says me, mine, mine. That is at a very lower level. Now we are in Yoga Shastra. That Ahankara is left long back. Person with that Ahankara has no place to come in this particular meditation. In fact, if there is Ahankara, there cannot be meditation. The Ahankara that is, it is Ahankarita, that means this is the place where identification of individuality started in the creation. What is the biggest issue that we have with ourselves? Bheda, Dvaita. What is Dvaita? Dvaita is me and everything. Me, that me, myself, me, pure, Shuddha. Individuality, purest form of individuality is Ahankara, which is the last bastion to be transgressed in that samadhi called Asmita Sampradnyat Samadhi. The word Asmita itself comes from Asmi, Aham Asmi, I am. That I amness is Asmita. Asmi, Aham Asmi, Asmita, I amness. This I amness is the last and the most difficult of the field to traverse. Now, we all must be understanding how Guru is so important in all this. It is not a journey that an individual can take on his own. He needs guidance, he needs support, he needs the precise instruction. Only Sadguru can do that. And Sadguru is aware where you are, which stage you are, what you need, how you are supposed to be moved forward. And that is why, since how Guru does this and how he helps in this transformation from one stage to another stage is not known. That is why we call it as a grace of Guru Dev. The grace means it is pure and sheer blessings because it cannot be quantified materially. It is something utterly intangible, yet the presence of a Guru is a must. And that being the reason, you find most of the great souls who themselves became gurus later on, went on searching for his guru or his guru. Where is my guru? Whether it is Shankaracharya, he had to leave the scout the entire India and come to Madhya Pradesh, where Govindapad was waiting for him. For an accomplished Shishya, Guru is always waiting. He knows where to go. There were many people who have gone to distant lands in search of Guru, and they have been told by even the other Gurus to go back and go to that place because he is your Guru. Shivananda Maharaj, who initiated our Gurudeva, told him that for the purpose that is there, I initiated you. But what you're going to learn, your guru is lying there. He's in Uttarkashi. Go there. So this particular aspect of movement is not something which can be done at a voluntary effort. That is why Guru is far, far, far highly respected person than any relationship that you can think of. That's why we don't call it Pita, Mata. These are very low relations. Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo, Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Parabrahma, because he is the one who has witnessed the Purushan consciousness. So he is able to guide the Shishya. Once the final bastion called Asmita is conquered, which is Ahankara, then how is the Srushti Prakriya that we have seen? After Ahankara, when we go reverse, we go towards what is called as Mahat or Prakruti. And then what happens? The yogi merges itself with the Prakruti, because every downward manifestation for him is over. Now, when a yogi from this point of view looks towards the world, how does the world look? The world is nothing else but the manifestation of same Prakriti in different forms. Yastu sarvani bhutani atman eva abudvijanatah tatra ko mohaha kashokaha ekatvam anupashyati. Ishavasyopanishad. Now one can understand properly. From that standpoint, when he looks towards the world, he does not look towards them as differentiated people, but as manifestation of Prakriti. And once you know it is manifestation of Prakriti, do we have enmity with the blade of grass? We don't. Why? It's a blade of grass. There is no relationship established with blade of grass, because the mind thinks that the blade of grass is nothing else but a blade of grass, while everything else is viewed through the spectacle of relationship, which has resulted into duality, which has resulted into anukulam pratikulam, which has resulted into ragam, dukkham, dvesham, etc. While for the yogi, from that standpoint, everything looks like manifestation of a Prakriti. That is why Guru Deva did deliver the message of the Bhagavad Gita. But for him, from the stage where he was sitting, when he was looking towards the people who were listening to it, he had no qualms about who is sitting in front. Is he the worst person on the lot? Is the best person? Is he sattvic? Is he tamasic? Is he rajasic? All for him was nothing else but the manifestation of Prakriti. That being the vision that they get, which is called as the Antarchakshu, that is how these 4 stages of Samprajnat Samadhi move upwards, and when this Asmita stage is transcended, at that point of time, from Ahankara, mind well, there is still a state called Mahat and Prakriti. After that, the Purusha is going to come. So then what is the state after this particular thing? After the Asmita stage is then Swatanjali Maharaj says, 18th mantra, Virama pratyaya abhyasa purvaha sanskara shesho anya. This 18th mantra is one which has given to enormous amount of conflicts in the in the interpretations of even the enlightened souls. That is why mind well, Yoga Shastra, when we are studying, it is not something which you can just pick up a book from anywhere and start reading the translation. There lies a danger of understanding getting distorted. Then what is the solution? The solution is amongst the pramanas, Shabda Pramana is the ultimate. That is where we are holding on to those who were realized souls and have gone through these stages and talked about it. That is why Vivekananda is our fundamental principle to which we stick. And also Vachaspati Mishra, Vyasa Bhashyam, Vijnana Chakshu. 4 realized souls taking into account their opinions, and then we are talking. In interpretation of Patanjali's Yoga Shastra, not one single word should be coming from the narrator. Certainly not from the person of my caliber, because non-empirical knowledge has inherent danger of misinterpretation. We have to take it from the mouths of those realized souls, and that is why every single word that we are discussing is something which has been spoken by nobody else but the realized souls. That is why after seeing so much of details, I think we are competent now to see now in Raja Yoga what is Swami Vivekananda saying about this particular mantra. If you directly read what is written by Swami Vivekananda, it is very difficult to understand, because he has written only one page on this mantra, presuming that everything else is known to us. Now that we have studied to a reasonable extent, he has described Savitarka Sampradnyat Samadhi. Some of them is repetition when I'm saying this is just to emphasize in our minds, because this forms the basis for the remaining of the Yoga Shastra. Swami Vivekananda says, when mind meditates upon the object excluding all other objects, that means one object excluding all other objects of the world, Savitarka Sampradnyat Samadhi comes. And he has said, what could be the object? He says, object could be the 24 tattvas of Prakriti or the Nirguna Nirakar Purush. This is talking in terms of a general meditation as an object, of which the manifested tattvas are the one which are used in Savitarka Sampradnyat Samadhi. Swami Vivekananda says, as soon as we meditate upon the nature, we know the nature, and that gives us power over the nature. This is his own experience, where he says that if you meditate upon an object of nature, any nature, you control the nature. That means a yogi starts getting what is normally called as miraculous powers or siddhis. The Ashtada Siddhis that we spoke about are nothing else but the powers that come because of the concentration in this particular journey. Higher the journey, more the power. Higher the journey. For example, by samapatti, perfect acquisition, by samapatti, any object that you meditate upon, the consciousness in all the objects, like a slave stands in front of you, and you can order them to behave in the manner you want, and they would. If you intend to have a tree uprooted simply because you wished so, it will get uprooted and it will lie horizontally in front of you, which common people will call what a power a saint has, what a power a yogi has. It's not a power, it is a power of consciousness. So consciousness is something with enormous power. So in the Pancha Mahabhuta stage, he says this. For the Nirvitarka Sampradnyat Samadhi, he says meditating on elements of nature by taking them out of time and space. This is easy to understand for us now. Then he talks about Savichar Sampradnyat Samadhi, as here the Tanmatras are taken as object of meditation, and it is called Samadhi with discrimination. He calls it Samadhi with discrimination. For Nirvichara Sampradnyat Samadhi, he says meditation on Tanmatra, eliminating space and time. For Sananda Sampradnyat Samadhi, he says the object is giving up the elements and fixing meditation on thinking organ or antakarana. Vivekananda Maharaj, Buddhi is same, antakarana, mind, Buddhi. So this is the third stop of focus. For Sa-Asmita Sampradnyat Samadhi, he says all gross, fine elements as well as the mind is eliminated except the Sattva state of the ego, that is called Sa-Asmita Sampradnyat Samadhi. And here Vivekananda says this is the same stage which the Veda calls it as Deha Tadatmya Virahita Avastha. The person is not aware of his body. there is a Prakruti Laya. That means everything, including your body, is dissolved from the mind, which is Sa Asmita Sampradnat Samadhi. As you can see, a meditator is using his mind to focus on something. So in these four stages, something peculiar is happening. That is the last point of our discussion today, but a very important point. The first four stages, which first four stages? The Savitarka Sampradnat, Nirvitarka Sampradnat, Savichar Sampradnat, and Nirvichar Sampradnat is called as Grahya Samapatti. Grahya means there is an object in front of you which is Sthula Bhuta or Sukshma Bhuta. It is called Grahya. Grahya. Grahya means object. Your object you are trying to focus upon is through mind, isn't it? So mind is called Graha, and this is called Grahya, to be absorbed or to be meditated upon. So first four stages are called Grahya Samapatti. Then what is happening? You are coming to the Graha itself. The mind is used for meditation. Now you are trying to meditate upon mind itself. Mind meditating upon mind is this stage of Sananda Samadhi. So it is called Graha Samapatti. And then, even when the mind is concentrating on an object, there is somebody behind the mind. You are coming at the last stage even to meditate upon the one who is meditating. That is called Grahita Samapatti. So Grahita, Graha, Grahya. Meditator, mind, object. First, focus on concentration on object. That is Grahya Samapatti. Then focus on the mind itself. And then focus on the focuser itself, Asmita. So Grahita, the focuser. Graha, the mind. Grahya, the object. So how the concentration is proceeding? Grahya to Graha to Grahita. Object to the mind to the meditator. So this is called as a process. This is given by, this is interpretation by Swami Vivekananda. In my humble opinion, now we all must be, or rather let us hope that we are clear with these four stages of what is called as Sampradnyat Samadhi, moving through Vitarka Vichara Ananda Asmita. Vitarka Vichara Ananda Asmita. After the discussion, you may feel that at last the meditation is over. It is not. It is still possible for the yogi to come back, and he does come back. That means the status of consciousness, of pure consciousness or absolute consciousness or Purusha, is still not established in the mind. He is in the process of establishing it. These all four stages are also called as Salambana Samadhi. Salambana means Alambana is holding on to something. If you could see in all these four stages, you are holding on to something. Initially, you are holding on to the object. Then you are holding on to the tanmatras, that the microscopic aspect of the fundamental aspect of the object. Then you are holding on to the buddhi. Then you are holding on to the asmita. That means you are still holding on. And non-holding is what is expected. Alambana Virahita Samadhi is what is expected. That is why this Samadhi is still considered as a lower Samadhi, though it sounds so complicated and so difficult to attain. Looking at this, sometimes we do feel extremely discouraged that when and how the things are going to happen. But the fact is, whether it is through Raja Yoga or any other yoga, the process remains the same. The stages may vary, A bhakta in bhakti, when he's completely absorbed, like Santa Mirabai or Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they all go through the same stage without realizing that these stages have come, because they are focusing only on Bhagavan Sri Krishna. From this one object, Sri Krishna, they keep transcending that object and reach the stage without naming anything in between. That is why if you look at the Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya or the Ramanujiya Vaishnava Sampradaya, they discard this mukti and saidja mukti and everything like an obstacle. They say, oh God, who wants all this sampradnyat and all that? Forget about it. All I need is you. Nothing remains in the mind except that I am das, I am nothing else but the premi, or I am nothing else but the balaka of the God. That is also the same thing. The process is same. The realization of that process, because it is focused only on the deity, the realization comes directly without knowing the stages, while a Raja Yogi observes every stage and move forward. So in the journey, when you are aware of each stop in the journey, you're doing a Raja Yoga, while in other yoga, the same journey happens without having to know the names of the stops that you take, because the process at both the places is same. Marga is different, destination is same. That consciousness which is called as a pure Purusha in the Sankhya or the Yoga Tattvajnana is nothing else but the same Vithala Narayana Vishnu, or Vishnu Padam in Ramanuji, or Krishna Padam in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu or the Gaudiya Vaishnava. The Krishna consciousness it is called. The Dasharathi Ram that we know is the object in the beginning. Where we reach is called Niranjanaram, again the supreme consciousness. So everybody is moving towards the same state. The question only is, after reaching the state, what do you do? After the accomplishment, a bhakta prefers to remain a bhakta, and he says to the God that please do not take me anywhere, just let me remain with you as a bhakta. A jnani merges into absolute consciousness. Post jnana, jnanottara sthiti, is a choice of the person depending upon the divine will, because now no more human will is there. So Bhakta continues. That is why Tukaram Maharaj says to Vithala that, oh Vithala, dare you take me away into the mukti and I will show you. Why? Do not take me away from your feet, because that is something which I have earned. Not only that, he goes a stage forward and teases the absolute consciousness Vithala, saying that, oh Vithala, how krupani you are, how poor you are, you cannot become bhakta. I only can become bhakta because you are a deity. You are a deity, you cannot become bhakta. But these are all jnanottara bhakti, post knowledge, post touching of the conscious, absolute consciousness. So these are higher stages that we will perhaps study as we move forward. But by the time of this conclusion, we can safely conclude that the 4 stages of Sampradnyat Samadhi we are aware of by now. So we will give a viram here and we'll carry forward. Hari Om. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnam Udachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.
Hari Om Sanjay ji. Just waiting if anyone has any clarifications.
Hari Om Sanjay ji.
Hari Om.
Here, now this Kathopanishad, that slogas, that mantras meaning is reflected here. Shurasya dhaya nishada duratya durgam patat kaviyo vadanti. It's very elaborate and difficult to cross the path to reach the ultimate emerging with the universe like Hari Om.
Very true. Hari
I have a question about the Samadhi.
Ji.
It is known that Santa Jnaneshwar finally took Sanjeevana Samadhi. Now, the stages of Samadhi that you have described, would it be the last stage or would it be an penultimate stage? Would it be beyond the last stage? What Sanjeevan exactly means what?
Hari Om. Sanjeevani means till the time you're alive. The samadhi can be taken on two pretexts. One is somebody who feels, because again, we need to understand that those who have reached the absolute consciousness stage or a jnani or the Atma Jnani, they work as per the divine will. Their decisions are as per the cosmic decisions, not the individual decisions. So when the divine will comes to a yogi and he wants to abdicate his body, since he is aware of all the time or the kala, he knows when he is going to die or when he is going to cast off his body. Yogis don't die, they cast off their body. So when they know that it is the time to merge with the Prakriti, which we call as death, they generally take their death in a very simple manner. Since they know the time of death, they go at a proper place because they know where to leave the body, because their living body also is going to have impact on the future generations, which is a part of the cosmic arrangement. They go to a particular time at a particular place in a particular way, looking towards north, Uttara, in the Uttarayana. So they all, because they are aware of the Jyotisha Shastra, we are going to come that in second pada of Yoga Shastra, and then they leave their body. Similarly, when you are alive, and then you take a decision to abdicate your body, it is called Sanjeevana, but it is not Sanjeevana with life, not Mrityu, Samadhi. Now here, because Jnanadeva realized that his avatar karya is over, mind well, Jnaneshwar was an avatar. Avatar means consciousness itself manifested as a human being. It is not human being that became consciousness. So for him, being a yogi, Nath yogi of highest order, all the elements were completely under his control. So ultimately, it is the prana that moves inside to keep you alive. So what he did is, being a yogi, he sat in a position of a yogi, took what is called as apana vayu and prana vayu under control, and with the help of prana nirodha, he was able to take away his consciousness from his body. So which normally leaves from the sahasrara, the tip of the head. From here, the consciousness of a yogi then leaves the body and the body becomes kashtavat. It remains lifeless and there. So that is how. However, the body where it is cast off by such an avatari purusha has all the attributes of pure consciousness. That is why wherever that samadhi is there, it remains the most pious place. Not only that, it has all the attributes of manifested personality even after the death. That being the case, 300 or 400 years after Jnanadeva's death, Jnanadeva came in the dream of Ekanath Maharaj and told him that the tree that is planted on my samadhi, one of the root of that tree is strangling my neck. And that is how it was explored, and that particular root was removed from there. What it indicates is that cast off Panchamahabhutas and the consciousness, because consciousness being supreme, it can play the way it wants with the Panchamahabhutas. That is why many a times, even the people of this Guru nature or the Sadhu or the Yogi nature, they can come into the dreams or they can appear and even bestow the initiations on the Shishya, which is born 200 years after them. If you look at the biography of Tukaram, his Guru came in the dream and gave the mantra Ramakrishna Hari, and Tukaram Maharaj's job was done. The one who gave Babaji Chaitanya was his name. He had never seen him. How does this happen? Because it does not follow or obey the rules of what we know. It follows what is called as divine rules, because time is secondary. Time is like a slave for them. So anything in any manner can happen. Jnaneshwar Maharaj took Sanjeevana Samadhi because he was a master of what is called as Nirbija Samadhi. In fact, they are always in Samadhi Avastha. And that Avastha we are going to see when we see the next sutra. These four, what we saw, is somebody of the yogi which is still not established in Samadhi. These are stages. He is yet to establish in Samadhi. Establishment in Samadhi is one where there is no falling back. Jnaneshwar Maharaj was already in that stage. So that is why he was consciousness personified. His body then was for the sake of Tukamane Ata Urlo Upkara Purta. Only for the sake of the humanity, they remain in that particular stage. Otherwise, why Gurudeva was roaming around the world? Why Vivekananda was roaming around the world? In Gita, it is called Loka Sangraha. It is only the purpose. That is why Sanjeevana Samadhi is when you abdicate or cast off your material body, when you are alive with your own wish after declaring it. So Jnaneshwar Maharaj actually declared the Sohala. All the saints came. For 3 days, there was a ceremony that happened. Then he went inside. A building block was made. The last brick was put by Namadev Maharaj, and the Sanjeevan Samadhi was taken. And when the Sanjeevan Samadhi happened, and when it was only a small drop of blood comes from the nostril right up to here, that indicates that the pranas have been taken out from here and the consciousness moves out. Hari Om.
Hari Om. Hari Om.